If you have ever lain awake at night, feeling that something inside you is still unfinished, you are not imagining it. There is a quiet weight that many people carry as they grow older. Not a physical weight, something deeper, something that sits in the chest, something that lives in the memory. And most people never speak about it. Not because they cannot find the words, but because they are afraid that saying it out loud will make it more real. Today, I want to speak about it with you, calmly, without rushing, because what I have learned after decades of sitting with people in the later years of life is that there are three things, three quiet burdens that almost everyone carries toward the end. And when they are left unspoken, they become heavier than they need to be. I spent many years in quiet rooms, sometimes in hospitals, sometimes in small apartments where the light came through old curtains, sometimes in homes where a cup of tea sat untouched on the table because the conversation had gone somewhere deeper than tea. And in all those years, in all those faces, I began to see a pattern. Not a clinical pattern, a human one. People did not come to me because they were sick in the traditional sense. They came because something inside them was asking to be heard, something they had been carrying for 10, 20, sometimes 40 years. And it always came down to three things. If you have felt that weight, even if you cannot name it, then what I am about to say is for you. You do not need to do anything with it. Just listen. Just sit with me for a while. The first thing people carry is words they never said. Not grand speeches, not long letters. Usually something very small. Something that once seemed too simple to say out loud. And then somehow the moment passed, and the simplicity of it became something painful. A thank you that was felt but never spoken, an apology that lived in the throat but never reached the lips, and I loved you more than I ever showed. We tell ourselves there will be another moment, another dinner, another visit, another phone call on a Sunday afternoon, and sometimes there is, but the words still do not come, because saying them means opening something tender, something we have spent years protecting. I remember sitting with a man. He was 81, and he told me about his brother. They had not spoken in over 20 years, not because of hatred, because of pride, a small disagreement that hardened into silence. And he said to me, and I will never forget this, he said, "I think about him every single day, but I do not know how to begin." 20 years of silence, and the only thing standing between them was one sentence, one honest sentence. That is how it works. The words are never complicated. What is complicated is the courage to say them. And so we carry them, year after year. The words sit inside us like stones. They do not dissolve. They do not leave on their own. If you are holding words like that right now, I want you to know something. It is not too late. Not because the person needs to hear them. Perhaps they are gone. Perhaps they have moved on. Perhaps the relationship ended long ago. It is not too late because you need to release them. You need to let them leave your body. Write them down on a piece of paper. Say them out loud to an empty chair. Say them to a photograph on the shelf. Say them to the sky if that is all you have. What matters is not that someone hears them. What matters is that the words finally move, that they stop living inside you as a weight and become something you gave back to the world. Even if no one is listening, you will feel the difference. The second thing is harder, and it is this. Most people, by the time they reach a certain age, have not forgiven themselves. Not for some terrible crime, not for something the world would judge, but for the small, private failures that live only inside their own memory, the ones that no one else remembers, the ones that no one else even noticed. A time you were not there when someone needed you. A decision you made out of fear instead of love. A moment when you chose silence instead of truth. A relationship you let die slowly, not because you wanted it to end, but because you did not know how to hold it. These things do not fade with time. I wish I could tell you they do, but they do not. In fact, they often grow sharper, because in the quiet hours, especially in old age, when the house is still and the world outside feels far away, the mind returns to them again and again, like a river finding the same stone. And the voice that replays those memories is rarely kind. It says, "You should have known better. You should have done more. You should have been stronger." But I want to ask you something, and I want you to sit with this question for a moment before you answer it. If a friend came to you and told you they had made the same mistakes you made, would you judge them the way you judge yourself? I do not think you would. I think you would look at them with compassion. I think you would say, "You did what you could. You were carrying more than anyone knew." So why is it so hard to say that to yourself? I have watched hundreds of people arrive at this moment, the moment when they stop punishing themselves. It does not happen suddenly. It happens slowly, reluctantly, and often with tears. But when it comes, there is a kind of relief that nothing else can give. Forgiving yourself does not mean saying what happened was right. It does not mean erasing the past. It means saying, "I was human. I was limited. I was afraid, and I did the best I could with what I understood at the time. That is not a weakness, that is the truth, and you have carried that blame long enough. The third thing is perhaps the most difficult of all, because it touches something very deep in who we are. It is the need to let go of control. For most of your life, you were the one who held things together. You were the one who made decisions, who solved problems, who carried the family, who showed up even when you were tired, even when you were afraid, even when no one noticed. That strength became part of your identity. It became how you understood yourself. I am the one who takes care of things. I am the one people depend on. I am the one who keeps going. And that was true. For a long time that was true. And it mattered. It mattered more than you know. But there comes a time, and perhaps you have already felt it, when life begins to ask something different of you. Not to be strong in the old way, but to be strong in a new way. The strength to rest, the strength to trust that the world will continue without your hands on it, the strength to sit still and let things be as they are. That is not giving up. I want to be very clear about that. That is not surrender. That is not defeat. That is wisdom. It is the quiet recognition that you have done enough, that your life had weight and meaning, that the people you loved were shaped by your presence, and that what remains now does not need to be managed. It needs to be felt. I sat with a woman once. She was 78, and she told me she could not stop worrying about her children. They were in their 50s. They had their own families, their own lives, but she still lay awake at night wondering if they were all right. And I asked her, gently, what would happen if she let that worry go? Not the love, just the worry. She looked at me for a long time, and then she said something very simple. She said, I think I would finally sleep. Sometimes letting go is not about losing something. It is about allowing yourself to finally rest. So before you leave this world, and none of us knows when that moment will come, say the words you have been holding. Even if no one is there to hear them, say them anyway. They were never meant to stay inside you. Forgive the person you have been the hardest on, and if you are honest with yourself, you know who that person is. It is you. And let go of the weight you no longer need to carry. You have held it with grace. You have held it with strength. But your hands are allowed to open now. You do not need to leave this life with a clean record. You do not need to fix every mistake. You do not need to be perfect. You need to leave it with a lighter heart. And if no one has said this to you today, you have lived a meaningful life, even the parts that hurt, even the parts that you wish had gone differently, even the parts you regret. All of it mattered, every single day of it. If these words brought you some sense of peace, you are welcome to return here whenever you need to. This space is not going anywhere, and neither is this conversation. You can come back to sit with these thoughts again. There is no hurry. There never was. Take care of yourself, gently, the way you would take care of someone you love, because that is exactly what you deserve.